certainly. And it was that came to my mind, together with what God was pointing out in the Bible. And of course, if I have faltered more or less in my great task of happiness, if beams from happy human eyes have moved me not, if summer skies, books and my food, and summer rain knocked on my sullen heart in vain, Lord, thy most pointed pleasure take, and stab my spirit broad awake. Or, Lord, if too obdurate I, take thou before this spirit die, a piercing pain, a killing sin, and to my dead heart run them in. And it brought home to me the positive benefit of this negative situation that we have in our world, which is, of course, as we've often said, a world that runs without God. But there are positive benefits to that, and that is part of God's use that he makes of all the things that go wrong in this present world. They are part of his piercing pain, the killing sin, running them deep into our hearts to awaken us. And it made sense again for me what happened in the second exile. It's, of course, Lamentations, and it's chapter 3 I was looking at, and it's all those many places in the Bible. Oh, page 709. It's one of those many places in the Bible where you're left rocking back on your heels, you know, and so often I have thought, oh, Lord, you're punishing them. Oh, why are you punishing them? Retributive justice, you know. And it took some time. Well, really, it's only when that celestial surgeon came back to me yesterday or the day before that I realized this is his restorative justice, you know. All the justice in the Bible is not retributive, not just pay them back for what they've done against me, but it's always restorative. So with the things that come about in this world that we meet, the things that aren't God's will, the things that signify that this world is going without God, and many of the things that touch us ourselves, and especially the things that go wrong in our own lives, especially those. Those are part of God's restorative justice, not his retributive justice. He has not sent those down upon us to punish us, or to beat us up, or to make life hard for us. He has sent those, allowed them to come to us for a purpose, to bring us into a new place in himself. And of course, it gives light immediately to all these dreadful things that you so often read over in the Old Testament, and you think, oh boy, I wish this wasn't there. And this guy has certainly missed it, you know. And of course, it's chapter 3 is a good example of it. I am the man, chapter 3. Of course, Jeremiah is talking as if he is Israel. I am the man who has seen affliction under the rod of his wrath. He has driven and brought me into darkness without any light. This is the exile. Surely against me he turns his hand again and again the whole day long. They've taken away my right, you know, to worship in my own temple. They've taken me from my own land. They've thrown me into a place of exile in a foreign country. He has made my flesh and my skin waste away and broken my bones. He has besieged and enveloped me with bitterness and tribulation. He has made me dwell in darkness like the dead of long ago. He has walled me about so that I cannot escape. He has put heavy chains on me. Though I call and cry for help, he shuts out my prayer. He has blocked my ways with hewn stones. He has made my paths crooked. He is to me like a bear lying in wait, like a lion in hiding. He led me off my way and tore me to pieces. He has made me desolate. He bent his bow and set me as a mark for his arrow. He drove into my heart the arrows of his quiver. I have become the laughingstock of all peoples, the burden of their songs all day long. He has filled me with bitterness. He has sated me with wormwood. He has made my teeth grind on gravel and made me cower in ashes. My soul is bereft of peace. I have forgotten what happiness is. So I say, gone is my glory and my expectation from the Lord. And some of the things that happen to us, we often think of them, they're terrible, terrible. But of course, the reason for them is, remember my affliction and my bitterness, the wormwood and the gall. My soul continually thinks of it and is bowed down within me. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul that seeks him. It is good that one should wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. It is good for a man that he bear the yoke in his youth. Let him sit alone in silence when he has laid it on him. Let him put his mouth in the dust. There may yet be hope. Let him give his cheek to the smiter and be filled with insults. For the Lord will not cast off forever, but though he cause grief, he will have compassion according to the abundance of his steadfast love. For he does not willingly afflict or grieve the sons of men, to crush under foot all the prisoners of the earth, to turn aside the right of a man in the presence of the Most High, to subvert a man in his cause, the Lord does not approve. Who has commanded and it came to pass, unless the Lord has ordained it? Is it not from the mouth of the Most High that good and evil come? Why should a living man complain? A man about the punishment of his sins. Let us test and examine our ways and return to the Lord. Let us lift up our hearts and hands to God in heaven. We have transgressed and rebelled, and thou hast not forgiven. And it just came home to me, that we so often miss the blessings that God is bringing upon us when we have difficulties or when things do not go exactly right as we thought they should. Or when we come into real misery and evil. It is long past time that we looked up lovingly to him and said, what are you teaching me here, Lord? All right, you're right, I was wrong. And that was not the wise way I was thinking. But how should I be thinking? In other words, to see the real blessing in what seem to be negative things, what seem to be things that are against God's will, what seem to be things that are not benefiting us and are not a blessing to us. Let us realize this is not just God giving us a hard time. This is not just something going wrong that he has not been able to control. This is him using the things that are not to make something of us little things that are. He's using the things that are not like him at all to bring us into a new awareness of himself. And it takes a little humility. And I thought to myself, often we are just so proud, so sure of ourselves. Oh, I'm saved, I'm on my way to heaven. We're so confident of our own position that we regard anything like that as an insult to us, as an assault upon our peace, instead of looking up and saying, Lord, is there something here you're trying to bring to my mind? I'm the most pathetic creature there is. But I do know enough, or maybe I've been knocked off my feet enough to be concerned when something does not go exactly right, or when something doesn't go the way I thought it would go, or when I myself am knocked off my perch a little. Then I look up fast. I have a joke with Irini about that famous guy who had a donkey, I remember, that wouldn't move it. And the guy couldn't get it to move, and he said, what do you do? And the guy took a 2x4 and knocked the donkey unconscious. He says, first you get his attention. And so we joke, I try to avoid God having to get my attention. I try to notice when he allows some of these things to come. And of course what it does is, you can see, it turns everything into blessing. It turns everything into a part of God speaking to you. You don't then regard the evil things as, oh, what terrible things, oh, terrible things those that were done. You see them as part of God controlling what is not his will in this world, to bring our attention to something new in himself, something new that we've to enter into ourselves. And that is part of the benefit of these things. So I just thought it changed my attitude. I think it's very easy for us to, in a quiet way, resent as an unusual and unfair and unjust interruption in our otherwise glorious, victorious walk. And it seems to me important to see, no, God uses the things that are not his will in this world and the things that are his will. He uses both to bring us into new light about ourselves and him. And so, just as I don't think you just watch to see if the signs are favorable and then you say, oh, that's the way to go. Because many times, such as our recent one with this selling of this house, the signs are not favorable. And you're lost if you watch just for favorable signs. But equally so, you don't then look at the thing that has apparently thrown God's plan off the lines. You don't look at those things and say, oh, that's all bad. It's all bad. There's nothing in it for us. You look and say, Lord, did I miss a step here? Did I miss my way? Did I miss something that you wanted? Often you haven't missed anything, but that's always the right attitude to take to him. Always, Stanley Jones would say, always when God says this is wrong, you never say, no, you're wrong, I'm right, Lord. You always say, you're right, Lord, I'm wrong. And that's always the safe thing to do. Always, don't be afraid to question yourself. Don't be afraid to think, maybe I am wrong. Maybe it's not just the circumstances that are wrong. Maybe God is using this to avoid having to use a 2x4.